I am your host, Nicole Will, and we thank you for joining us as we navigate the world with your aging loved one. We are here to come alongside elders, family members, and the senior living community as we explore the world of aging and elder care with helpful resources, informative interviews, and approachable conversations. We get to do this together, so join us on our journey, and this is the willGather podcast. Today, I have with me Susan Black. She is the founder and CEO of Wowzitude, which we will learn exactly what that is. But first, Susan, welcome. Thank you for talking with me today.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm so thrilled to be here.
The fact that we can connect like this and be in two different parts of the US just makes me so happy. We're craving that connection, and having Wowzitude travel the world just makes everyone so happy. How can you not love that? What's your story? How did you decide to create Wowzitude?
So I'm so glad you asked me that, Nicole. And you're absolutely right. Who doesn't love exploring or revisiting the world? But this happened as a result, quite frankly, of COVID. We hear of COVID catalysts or new things happening. So all of us, I think, have traveled somewhere, either locally or abroad. And many of us love to take guided tours. Who doesn't, to learn more about the cities? And I've been my entire career in the travel industry. My job was to bring people joy and pleasure going all around the world. With COVID, clearly, we couldn't get out. And moreover, my mom was in assisted living. And my mom said to me, Susie girl, the thing I miss most is getting out and seeing the world. Isn't there some way you can bring the world to us? And not with TV and not with video, but a way that we can actually go on tour and talk to the local guide about the weather, about culture, about food, about anything. Well, it took some time for me to figure out how to do that. But with COVID, many of our guides that I've worked with for so many years were also being creative. And they were learning ways to do remote tours, live streamed 2 ways over Zoom. And so a beautiful thing happened. The connectivity was there. And for many at home, they were learning to use Zoom. And certainly in senior living communities, they were working with Zoom. And on the guide side, they were investing in equipment so they were able to Zoom their tours live with 2-way conversations into people's homes and communities. And that's how Wowzitude was born.
I'm so glad it was. I think it is such an amazing addition to life, not only for everyone, but especially the older adults that live in senior communities or are home on their own or with family members. It really is such a way to have that interactive experience.
Absolutely. And that's really critical. I mean, the whole idea is it's connections and conversations. It's getting out to see the world and with a local and really being able to engage in real-time conversations. So as we're looking at the beauty of cities like Prague and Berlin and New York and London and Paris and really 50 destinations that we go to and adding all the time, it's being able to talk to that local guide about everything from the weather to what's happening with pandemic restrictions. It's funny, today I just went to Prague with our groups. And 2 weeks ago, I went with the same guide with Nicola. 2 weeks ago, they were all wearing masks and it was freezing cold outside in Prague. Today, it was 90 degrees and the restrictions were lifted, so there were no masks. And what was wonderful was we were walking all around Prague on the Charles Bridge, for those who have been there, gorgeous. And it looked so normal and so wonderful. It just is uplifting.
Oh, and how cool to see the difference of life. That's real life, right? Where you've got a cloudier day and we're honoring those safety measures to today where it's 90 and sunny.
And that's the beauty of it. You're there real time. You're there, we have to always take into consideration, especially with Europe, they're several hours ahead of us. So sometimes we may be taking a guided vacation, as we like to call it. And we're here in the United States in the afternoon and it's already nighttime in Europe. But because they're live, They're always real time. They're always live. We're seeing exactly what's happening at that moment.
Like you're there, like you're visiting in person.
Absolutely. And our guides are very interactive. They love getting questions from all of our communities. They love answering the questions. We were in Berlin earlier this week, and we had a whole discussion about the architecture between East Berlin and West Berlin. One of our guests was a resident with a lovely community in Connecticut, and she was a retired architecture in her 90s. And they got into a fabulous conversation about what's changed from the last time she was in Berlin 20 years ago with the architecture. What a fabulous conversation to have. You know, it's just that's the best part of my day.
Seeing those personal moments come out. So if we can share with everyone, if we were to distill it down, what is Wowzitude exactly? Can you explain to us how it functions?
It is. It's your community's armchair travel every week that's completely immersive. And what do I mean by that? Well, not only do we do these live tours that are both hosted and have a local guide, but we also provide every community every week with tour documents. What's your itinerary? Where are you going? What are you going to see? We also know that my mother had said, you know, Susie, when I tour, I like to eat. Okay. So what we did is we got iconic recipes from some of the restaurants or bakeries that we're going to see locally, and or some recipes from our tour guides' mothers or grandmothers that are they've been handed down for years. And we also have adult beverage recipes, because who doesn't like to
good
drink
cocktail.
and walk and talk as well. So we have music selections that are downloadable. Basically, we want on our weekly tours, every community to feel completely immersive. Now, some communities actually use those recipes as a cooking activity, or some will share it with the families of their loved ones so that the families can cook the recipes and talk to mom or dad about where they went or where they're going each week. The other thing with our armchair travel is we love shout outs, meaning we love if somebody was born in that country and we acknowledge that. And there's 3 ways to really contact us. One is on Zoom chat. Another one is to text the host. As I said, we always have a host and a guide, and we give the host number. So it's easy to text for activity directors. And the third way is you can raise your hand and we'll open your mic to ask a question if you'd like. So it's very ordered. Everybody can hear and see everything, and we open questions and curate those questions at the appropriate time. But it's completely immersive, very affordable, and really meant to be a total immersion for the week in that country or city.
Oh, so much. And when I have to tell you, I took the Prague tour a few weeks ago, and it was so wonderful. The guide was so engaging and kind and shared so much history as we were walking through the city, questions about food and what was life like during COVID. And it was interactive in that people that were a part of the tour were asking really great questions in real time. And the dialogue was amazing. It was super personal. I enjoyed it so much. I walked away feeling like I couldn't believe the hour was up. And I thought, okay, could we do like a half-day tour?
Always start, the reason we call it Wowzitude is because it's a combination of wow and attitude.
Yeah.
And gratitude. So, you know, it all comes together. We always start every tour with a wow moment, meaning a beautiful shot, postcard picture shot of wherever we are of the city. And we always end with a wow moment. So we want everyone on tour to say exactly as you did, Nicole, wow. And that's when people say wow, we know we've done our job. We want to give wow experiences and then look forward to the next week's wow experience. We should never, ever have to stop exploring or revisiting places that we dreamed about or that we love just because of our current circumstances. Now with technology and now with these platforms and with these guides who are able to do it, we can continue this exploration. And as I said, that's the best part of my day. Of course, I love going to these places, but what I really love is hearing all of our guests be able to both ask their questions and share their stories and talk about if they were born. For example, when we went to Dublin, we heard about Mary Gallagher, who was turning 100. And when we passed Cleary's department store, that's where she met her husband,
Oh,
under the
wow.
clock at Cleary's.
Wow.
So we have hundreds of these stories that people share. And it's so interactive in ways that I never dreamed.
Yeah, and when you're talking, there's so many benefits, and travel is so healing. It teaches us so much, not only about ourselves, but about other cultures and people, and that connection that really we are so connected, our humanity, when we really think about it. What are some of those other benefits of travel that you could share with us?
Well, it really works. We get questions saying, who is this best for? And we really say pretty much everyone. So the communities we work with range from independent all the way to memory care. And with memory care, with those with mild or moderate dementia, reminiscence therapy, being able to remember back to a pleasant, wonderful time where they may have been with a loved one or a family member, to London or to Paris, all of a sudden makes it just a wonderful thing. And I'll bring back to that Berlin story I told you earlier with the architecture discussion. We got a call from the executive director about a half hour after our program ended, who said that that his resident had mild dementia. They were concerned that during COVID, it had progressed. And this is the most she had engaged and spoke about. Her passion was architecture, in over 9 months.
Wow.
So yes, so we have that. We, quite frankly, I started crying when I heard that. That's touching into the humanity of people. So the whole idea of being able, again, to explore or revisit, to share stories, to ask questions, to form these connections real time is what gives us purpose and gives us our humanity. As I said, I've been in travel my entire career. I know the benefits, as you said, Nicole, of learning about new cultures. It's just such an uplifting experience. And the fact that we're now able to bring that into communities and into homes real time is a gift.
It is. It really is. And you've thought through so many ways to bring that real engagement and that immersive experience. There are some other ways that you do that I thought were really meaningful. If you could talk about what are those other things that you've thought about to really make it a comfortable, engaged experience for older adults?
Well, as we said, we really tried to think about just about everything. And working with my mom, who is 97 years old, was very illustrative for me, because I said, Mom, what would you like to do in an ideal world when we can bring this travel to you? And it wasn't just Mom. Mom got all of her peers involved at her assisted living community. So we had about 40 or 50 people all telling us what they would like for about 3 or 4 months before we launched. So we really worked on the pilot very strongly. And what we found was they would like to have these recipes, because who doesn't like to watch and maybe have a snack of those local delicacies? They'd like to go into bakeries and maybe meet the baker who made it, or into restaurants to meet a Michelin star one. What we also found is they love the element of surprise. None of our tours is scripted. All of our tours are live, so you never know what's going to happen. Dogs run across, we see cute little kids, we see life. So it really is as if you are with these guides, walking with them. We also have guides that take us in a car, such as in Berlin. We go to East Berlin, West Berlin, we cover a lot of ground. And we have guides that take us on their bicycle trips in through Amsterdam and Budapest. And we even do a canal tour of Venice, going through the canal in gondolas. Who would guess that we would still be able to go on gondolas? Yes. So we try to make it as authentic and as immersive as possible, whether it's food, drink, transportation, talking to the guides. We have downloadable music. We always start each program listening to the music. and watching a slideshow just to give us a sense of where we're going to go. And then boom, we're right into that destination.
Yeah, kind of set the stage. And one thing you mentioned when we had talked before, I loved our conversation we had about a month ago, was that you allow for late arrivals. And I thought there was so much dignity in that because it is hard. I remember hosting events for my residents and only so many people could fit on the elevator. And my activity room was in one part of the building, and mobility issues maybe takes a little bit longer to get there. And so to uphold that dignity of allowing to do that, how do you do
So I'm
that?
glad you brought that up, Nicole. My mother had post-polio syndrome, so she was in a wheelchair. And one of her complaints on a regular basis was she loved the programming. That's when she connected with her tribe, with her community. But she would get anxious if she felt she was getting someplace late, anxious and embarrassed. And, we know the challenges, just the logistical challenges of getting so many residents into a community room all at the same time. It's really challenging. Some people may have to go to the powder room before. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. So what we do is we have our host, everyone is hosted, start by setting the stage. They talk a little bit about who's been there. They do some shout outs. They basically do a little, warming up the audience, let's call it that way, time. We listen to some music, we see some slideshows, we go over, just a little bit about the destination. We, of course, give the bio and the introduction to our guide, who's the star of the program. And we always wait 10 minutes into the program. So the program's already started, it's already underway, but the main feature, which is the tour itself and the guide, starts 10 minutes after the program begins so that everybody can be safely and securely and comfortably and with no anxiety into their spots and not have to miss even a second of the destination. And we find that in our pilots, that's worked really, really well. In addition, we know that some people have some hearing problems among older adults. So we have live stream closed captions of everything, including all the accents of our guides, and it picks it up beautifully. And those captions can be made larger to fit any screen. It's very simple. We tell people how to do it. So everyone can, if they're having a little problem hearing, they can always read the captions if they wish. So we've really tried to think of how to really work with older adults in particular. Wowzitude is for older adults. That's what it's for. That's what it was designed for. That's what it was made for. We work with our guides to speak slower. We work with them, we train them. We have a training every week about our audiences, which are older adults, and how to answer questions, how to speak slower. And also the host helps a lot because the host will repeat something that a guide may have said that may not be as easy to hear because of the accent. So we've really tried to think of everything to make it a really wonderful experience for our guests.
Yes, such attention to detail, and those little details that upheld that dignity and took into account our older adult population really stood out to me, as well as your guides were in. The host was really great about calling people by name and engaging them in the conversation, which is so meaningful. You feel like you're really a part of that community at that time.
Absolutely. Now, again, when I used to plan tours in my role as head of marketing for a number of major tour companies, whether they were Globus or Travel Impressions, Colette, CIE Tours, a number of groups that I've worked with. It was so important, the interplay between the guide and the tour director and the guests. This is the same. We treat everyone the same way that I would expect and that we've worked on over the years. So your point, Nicole, of addressing people by name when they ask a question is so critical, because we want to say things like Leslie from Chicago or Nancy from the Preserve at Palm Air community. That's all part of this very personalized type of experience, which we can do with a number of communities. We used to joke, it's kind of like book club without the book. Every week you get to go. You don't have to read the book, but every week you're enjoying it both with your own tribe and your own community if you're in a community room, and you're also enjoying it with other communities as well. So there's connections all over the place with the guide, with the host, with other communities, and then of course with the families, because many of our communities will send the trip kit with the recipes and the itinerary and everything each week to the families of their residents. And so, again, more conversation about going to London or Berlin. So we're all about connections and conversations. If I had to boil it down to just one thing, Nicole, that's what I would say. We're about connections and conversations. And that's what really makes Wowzitude sparkle.
Sharing that with family members, engaging them in that conversation. Sometimes we would have families visit and they didn't really always know what to talk with their loved one about. And having a point of conversation is so helpful. This is the perfect, means to do that.
Well, it's funny. I just had a meeting today with the community outreach director for one of our communities. It was the preserve at Chestnut Ridge in Chestnut Ridge, New York, Debbie Corwin. And I told her I was doing this podcast. I said, can I say your name? She said, absolutely. She was showing around a prospective resident and their family. And they were talking about activities and ways to engage mom. And she brought up, because they're participants, obviously, on our weekly armchair travel club. And one of the residents came by almost like on cue and said, Debbie, we went to Berlin yesterday. It was fabulous. Did you know what we saw? So the family, before understanding what was going on, said, is she all there? She went to Berlin yesterday. And Debbie laughed and said, no, she really did go to Berlin yesterday. You can ask her anything about it. And by the way, when your mom comes here too, not only will she go to Berlin, she's going to go to 52 different major cities each week, and you and she can talk about it, because how fun. And every week there's something new to talk about adventures. And by the way, you could talk about anything with the guides, anything that's happening in the world, questions about things. We're going to London. You should see the questions about Meghan and Harry that's coming up. I mean, it is so much fun and so engaging. And then that translates to conversations with the family.
And if we're looking at it from, a senior housing lens, the marketing piece behind that those communities are offering technology savvy virtual tours that are immersive is a selling point. If I had two communities and they both were equal and I got to travel live in one, that's where I'm going.
Well, and it's so easy. You don't need any equipment. You don't need to buy anything. It's just a link on Zoom. If you have a screen and you have Wi-Fi, you're set. That's it. It works on small screens. It works on large screens. It works with screens that are provided by IN2L. It works on screens provided to other suppliers. We are agnostic. It is literally just a link. And we did it that way on purpose. We truly did not want to have a proprietary platform. We didn't want to have anybody need to buy anything. And we also have a cancel for any reason policy. If it's not right for your community, after a trial period, you can cancel. So although it is a subscription and we go each week someplace, if we're not delighting your community, then you shouldn't have to have them be there. So so far I could say we have had no cancellations. However, the opportunity does exist if it's not the right fit. And I'm a big believer in that. It's got to be the right fit. So we're constantly improving the program and trying new things and engaging new types of things. But the technology is really quite simple. We also make it easy for the activity director. We know, especially nowadays, how much is going on in these communities and how much is being expected of that activity director. So one of the things, and we, by the way, we have activity directors on our advisory board. So we asked them, what will make it easy for you? And so what we heard and what we do is we provide all of the flyers. All you have to do is download it and put the time, date, et cetera, where it is, you're done. We provide these travel documents. So it's very easy. You can run them off and hand them out to your residents, or you can email them to the families. We literally have tried to think of every single thing so that all you have to do is get your residents in the community room, turn on the screen, connect to Zoom, and we're done. That's it. That's it. So we're trying to make it easy, affordable, relevant, exciting, fun, informative, and really appeal to each of the communities that we work with. That's our goal.
I couldn't have said it better than that. That's all of those points are so valid, so valuable. And you talked about all of the destinations that you go to, all of the travel chats that you cover. Speaking of all the amazing things you do, how are you growing? What's next?
So I'm so glad you asked that. We are growing. We're growing in leaps and bounds. A lot of it is word of mouth. The best part is when some of our communities talk to other communities and they talk about how their residents are delighted going each week. But of course, that means that we have to cover more of the world, which we are. So we have Adam Moreau, who, believe it or not, is based in Budapest. He's one of our guides, who also is our trainer. I mentioned that we are very much on training best practices in terms of the devices they use and how they talk to the senior market and all sorts of things, which we do every week. But what we're also doing is we're getting from our communities, where else would you like to go? And so we're putting in all sorts of new places. We've just added Auckland, New Zealand, which is fabulous, Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. We have Moscow, we have St. Petersburg. We're now all over South America, and we're adding all sorts of places domestically as well, because who wouldn't want to go on an Art Deco tour of Miami or go down in New Orleans, especially around Mardi Gras time? Who wouldn't want to see the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge and walk across that, or the Brooklyn Bridge for that matter? So we're opening up all of exotic destinations and then also very familiar places to revisit. And it's a combination of those two that makes it so special. But we get a lot of requests from our current groups that come, and we try to fulfill them. And that's part of our job, is to both recruit and to evaluate and to train guides, licensed guides, all over the world to be part of the Wowzitude guide family. And I must tell you, Nicole, they love it. Why do they love it? Not just because, okay, COVID, they're not getting a lot of visitors there now. Why will they love it afterwards? Because first of all, they all have, and this is what we hear, I have a grandma, I have a grandpa, I would want somebody to do it for them. They are very connected with the mission of Wowzitude and the audience of Wowzitude to bring these wonderful connections and conversations into senior living communities. So they feel, and justifiably so, that they're really doing good. And we want them to do well in doing good, meaning we compensate our guides very well, and they're very grateful, especially at a time that their business is dried up. So it really is a very nice type of commercial enterprise all around.
Benefiting so many people, and you vet your guides so well. They're licensed, they know the culture and where they live and all the information, and they're trained on how to then interact. It's the perfect combination altogether.
And we also listen. We want to get people with soft accents, because sometimes a very heavy accent is hard to understand, especially for older adults. So when we're doing our screening and our training, we're making sure that even though there are accents, the English is fabulous and the accents are soft. They're still wonderful and magical, but we can understand them. And as I said, we have the closed caption just in case.
We're going to end with my favorite story that we talked about last time. Can you tell our listeners about Magna and her story? It just like brought tears to my eyes.
Well, this is my favorite story also, so I'm glad you asked that one. We went on a tour in Budapest of the ghetto. It was with a group that wanted to see different types of things and really tap into some of their residents' own experiences. And we found out that one of the residents is Magda, who who was born in Hungary, in Budapest, survived the ghetto in the 30s and 40s. And we found some information about her and where her home was. So while we were walking around in the ghetto, in the old Budapest ghetto, we happened upon her home. We opened the mic with her permission, and we asked her to describe what she saw. And what she said was, "That's my old home. I lived there as a young woman, a young girl, and we lived on the second floor. I remember the night, March 16th, 1941, when we were marched down the stairs. And as she was describing it, our guide, Adam, was panning through everything. So we were listening to Magda and Magda's story, and we were watching this at the same time. She ended up by saying, I stood there in front, my hands were up, a Nazi officer's pistol was at my forehead, and my family was lined up. All of a sudden, there was an explosion at the end of the road, and the Nazis went running. We didn't die that night. We survived. Now, not all of them survived, but she and her sister survived, and they came to the United States and had very wonderful lives. But that story and that connection and that memory was so, as sad as it was, clearly, was also so uplifting, because she talked about her resilience and she talked about what it was like. And she also said this was the first time she had been back since she left, and she remembered everything. Now, that doesn't happen on each one of our tours, but that did happen that day in that tour of Budapest. So we have these wonderful recollections, such as when someone meets their husband and can remember those places, or a cherished vacation in a hotel they stayed at, or where they grew up, or family members that they had. And then we have the poignant ones, such as Magda's story. So it really is a very special, special armchair travel club that we bring to our communities.
Susan, it is so special. Having participated firsthand, I can fully say I really hope everyone engages with Wowzitude, has it a part of their communities, has it a part of their loved one's home, a great way to interact with your family and do it together. I think there's so many different ways to connect and to travel and to have that shared humanity and shared experiences. So thank you for creating this and bringing it to us. It is so valuable.
Well, thank you, Nicole, for first going on tour with us in Prague. And thank you for your such kind feedback and remarks. Thank you for your enthusiasm. And of course, thank you for having me on your podcast to your audience to help spread the word about how exciting it is to keep exploring and revisiting through Wowzitude. I much appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
So I have to tell you about Jimmy Zolo and his new company, Joe and Bella. Our paths had crossed, and I'm so glad they did. It was such a pleasure to meet Jimmy. He is passionate about older adults. He told me that after both of his grandparents moved into a care community, his family's world was turned upside down, and they really became caregivers overnight. As you know, being a caregiver to someone close to you is often overwhelming overwhelming. There's so much for you to manage, even with the support of a care community, like making sure your loved one has all of the products that they need and keeping them stocked when things run out, keeping inventory on what you have and what you don't. Jimmy also had that problem, and he was scrolling through all of these product reviews across the internet, and like most of us in the sandwich generation, we don't have enough hours in the day. It can feel really overwhelming and time-consuming and frustrating. We don't know what we're always looking for. And he wished there was a way to shop for his grandparents. Then the pandemic hit, preventing visitation to care communities, making this process even more difficult. So Jimmy decided to launch his own business to solve this problem. He founded Joe and Bella to make shopping for older adults simple. They carry everything from comfy clothes to creative gifts. They even have toiletries that can be automatically reordered and tech that makes caregiving easier. Everything all in one location. What I love, and I know you guys will love too, is that each and every product on Joe and Bella has been carefully selected by caregiving experts. Jimmy is so generous. He is giving an exclusive offer to our listeners of our podcast. You can use the promo code GATHER to receive 10% off your first purchase at joeandbella.com. That code is GATHER, GATHER, for 10% off at joeandbella.com. You don't want to miss this offer. Head to their website and check it out. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.